Good evening, everybody,
Kabbalah Taraf, how are you?
and God. Yeah, so we're continuing the bit Yosef, I think, here. It says, ויש ספרים שאנו, um, yeah, I'm sorry. ויש ספרים שאינו שם בגמרא, עד כאן לשונו. Right, okay, I'm sorry, that's already what we finished. Now it says like this. עד כאן לשון הסמ"ג. וביאור דבריו. Oh, let me just see what I Yeah, this would be a good place to start. וזה לשון סמ"ג. So it says, this is the language of the סמ"ג. כל מקום שיחיד חוזר ומתפלל, every place where an individual goes back and prays, but ta'uto, when he makes a mistake, shliach tzibur chozer u'mitpalel. Also, the same thing with the chazan has to be as well. Ve'im ta'a chutz mishachrit, so it says if he made a mistake, besides shachrit, shel rosh chodesh, b'rosh chodesh, v'chulei, etc., there's all kinds of things there. Katuv bahag, it says in bahag, which is the halachot gedolot. V'chen im shachach b'musaf. It says there that even if he forgot in Musaf, because of the community having to wait for him, the old sharet filat mincha lefanad, and also there's still the prayer of mincha, which is still ahead of him, so we can make it up there. About the Shabbat, the Yom Tov, but he says when it comes to Shabbat and Yom Tov, no, not so. Right, so he says, right, that there are some books that don't have this text. Okay. Anyway, Art Connection, that's the end of it. So it says, right, which was the quote from the Samag. So it says, now we explain, right? Bahag Katuv Shehu Hadin Im Shachach Musaf. So regarding what he said regarding the Bahag, that if he forgot during the Musaf, but he doesn't go back and do it again. And the reason why he says this is because that's his text in the Gemara. That it says there that if he made a mistake and he didn't mention Rosh Chodesh Shachrit, so when it comes to Musafin, it says we don't tell him to go back because he can say it with mincha. אבל יש ספרים שאינם גורסים כך. But there are some books that don't have this text, right? And also in our books, we don't have it, right? That's how we learned it last time on Thursday. We don't have this text here. In the Samak, Katav, it's written over there, Stam, Belo Shum Machloket. It's brought down without any differentiation, without any dispute. So there he writes, right, that yes, if you forgot doing the Musaf, you don't have to go back and do it again. So that's going against all the poskim that we brought last time, who said that you have to go back and do it again. So this is like a differing opinion. Okay, so then he goes on. Mitoch divrei samag shkatabti. So he says, from the words of the samag that I wrote, besamuch, close by, mashma de lo mefalginan ben shliach tzibur leyachid. It implies that we don't differentiate between shliach tzibur and the individual. Ela betfilat rosh chodesh davka, only when it comes to the prayer of Rosh Chodesh. Okay, lishna de braita, like the language of the braita, katane that it teaches. Ta'ab lo iskir. It says like this: if you made a mistake and didn't mention Rosh Chodesh, the mashma abal lo betfilat Shabbat. That implies, but not when it comes to Shabbat or the Yom Tov and Yom Tov. Abal samak, but samak katav. He writes the Hu Adin betfilat Shabbat. Same thing also applies to the prayers of Shabbat and Yom Tov. Shu sober, because he holds the Hadi Katane Ta'ab lo iskir shel Rosh Chodesh. That which it teaches that he made a mistake and didn't mention Rosh Chodesh. Lav lemaot Shabbat Yom Tov. It's not coming to exclude Shabbat and Yom Tov. Ela chad aminayu nakat. He's just using one of them as an example, but it doesn't mean the other one is different. The same thing also applies to the others as well. Katab Rabbeinu de'achi mistabra. So it says the Torah that that's the more reasonable way of looking at it. The Ma'ashina Shabbat Yom Tov, right? What's the difference between Rosh Chodesh and Shabbat and Yom Tov? Right, it's all the same. The lo kedivrei samag, not like the words of the samag. Katab od shegam mash katab samag. He writes further that also what it says in the samag. Dehu adin im shachach velo izkir shel Rosh Chodesh. Same thing also applies if he forgot and didn't mention Rosh Chodesh. Betfilat HaMusafin in the prayers of the Musaf. Eno chozer. It doesn't go back. Lo nehera doesn't make sense. He says the lo kamar begemara, because he didn't say in the Gemara ela mipnei shetfilat HaMusafin lefanav, only because the Musaf is ahead of him. Aval lo samchinan mimusaf mincha. But as we said, right, we don't jump from Musaf to Mincha, which is a big jump, because we don't do one juxtaposed to the other. So it's not really the same thing. Shalach hazman. Ve'elu hen divrei harosh katabti besamuch. So this is like the words of the Rosh that we wrote. V'tamahani al de Rabbeinu shemaksheh alav. So he says, I'm wondering about the Rabbeinu, the Tur, who asked the right questions on this. Because it doesn't say in the Gemara, except Shetfilat Musafin, because the Musaf, the Fanav is in front of him. Share lefi mash katav samad, because according to what it says in the Samag, the Bahag al-Gores b'Gemara, the Bahag has this text in the Talmud, Gam ken mipnei shetfilat ha-mincha lefanav. Also because the mincha is in front of him, so therefore you should have said like this, Shen Girsat Bahag Ikar, that the text of the Bahag is not the proper one. Sharei Harif Rambam, because Rif and Rambam, the Rosh Nosh, Enam Grosim, they don't have this text. Ela Mipnei Shetfilat HaMusafin lefanav, only regarding Musaf they have that. Okay. Davka b'shachrit lemusaf, it's only from shachrit to musaf. Shegilim yitpalel kachad. They pray, together, one next to the other, juxtaposed. Amud esamchin anava. That's what we said, right? We rely one for the other. Aval lo mitfilat musaf litfilat mincha. But when it comes to musaf to mincha, that's already a big jump, as we said, right? Not really the same thing. Okay. V'efshar she'Rabbeinu haya mefarish. It's possible that Rabbeinu, the Torah, explained Mash Katab Samag, that which the Samag wrote. Vish Sfarim Sheno Sham B'Gemara. If there are books that the Gemara doesn't have this, Lo Kai Ela Amai, it's referring to what the Katab Hashem Hilchot Halachot Gedolot. That what you wrote, name Halachot Gilot. But b'Shabbat b'Yom Tov, when it comes to Chag Shabbat Yom Tov, he said, no, not so, right? We differentiate between Rosh Chodesh and Shabbat Yom Tov. Like it says also, this rabbi, about Mash Katab, but that what she wrote. If you forgot Musaf, etc. These are the words of the Bahag. Sheomer Ken Misra, that he says this right from logic. Don't come from the Talmud. Just his own logic there. Nevertheless, yesh gimgum Lashon Rabbeinu. So he says, but there is here some like something unclear from the Torah, unclear language. Katab achar divrei samak, that he wrote afterwards the samak. V'chen mash katav shegam. And also that which he wrote afterwards. Shegam the musaf, also musaf en machazirin, that we don't go back. Lo neher, doesn't make sense. He says ad kan v'kochach. So it says you must say ka'el samag, talking about the samag. Kimo shepirashti, like I explained. V'me'achar shesamag nami sabar kesamag. So it says since the samak and the samag hold the same way. Kach habalel Rabbeinu lichtov. The Rabbeinu should have written like this: Umash katav shegam b'musaf en machzirin. Not which he said that also regarding musaf we don't go back. Ken katav gam ken b'samak velo nera. It says also in samak, but it doesn't make sense. Okay, so it's a big discussion here, right? There's several different approaches we saw regarding this. So the main question here is, one thing. Do we equate shachrit to musaf? That's the big question. According to the opinions we saw on Thursday, we don't equate them. So therefore, when it comes to musaf, you have to go back and say, pray again. When it comes to shachrit, you don't have to pray again because your musaf is right in front of you. You can make it up there. But according to the opinion that we just saw now, the same thing applies for musaf as well. That if you didn't say Yalev Yavo, you don't have to go back because you can do it at mincha. So this seems to be more like a minority opinion. But anyway, right? Let's see the bottom line. Where we're going. So it says Bet Yosef Ulinyan halacha, right? But bottom line, right? What's halacha? Kivan sharif be'arambam be'arosh sobrim shelo amur ela b'tah b'tfilah shachrit. Since all these three rabbis hold, right, the Rif, the Rambam, Rosh, that they hold the Talmud only said this regarding shachrit and not musaf. But when it comes to musaf, right, you have to go back and pray again. So therefore, he says, right, that's the way we paskin. As we already spoke about this, right? But these are the big three, when it comes to the Bet Yosef, right? So since they all agree, obviously we paskin like that. There is a discussion about this. I don't know if I mentioned this. Maybe in the past I did. But there is a discussion. Why did he pick these rabbis? There's so many others, right? That he didn't pick them to be the big three. Like what made these rabbis better than the others? So the main point seems to be that if you look in the introduction of Bet Yosef, that they were accepted more. Like the Rosh was accepted in Europe. So basically, right, all of Europe was doing like the Rosh. And the Rif was accepted in Africa. Those countries over there, North Africa, Morocco, Egypt, and so forth, so on. And the Rambam was accepted in the in the Middle East, right, Eretz Israel, the surrounding areas there. So since they were accepted in those three areas, these three rabbis, so that means that their opinions are more weighty since everybody's doing like them. Which is that shows you, right, that once the whole community starts to do like a certain rabbi, that shows that just like they accept him here, below, he's also accepted above, right, in the heavens, right. So That's a good sign for a rabbi, that his opinions are accepted. This is the reason. This is the main reason why he picked these three rabbis. Just to let you know, right? What the reason is for that. You may remember from my older classes. I already said this maybe. Anyway, so and the other rabbis, the Rishonim, right? They're talking about the earlier authorities. They were not so widely accepted like these three. This is the main point. We're not talking about now who's smarter, and who's more sharp. We don't really know these things. We're not really. We can't judge them. We have no power to judge these people. We can't. Go. We can't judge somebody who's way above us. You know what I mean? We're on the ground and they're in the stratosphere somewhere. You know what I mean? We're not capable of judging their intellectual prowess. We don't have that power to do that. So anyway, right, that's the way it goes. So So now there's another question which comes up here, right? Which is that what about Shabbat and Yom Tov, right? Do we say the same thing, or does it only apply to Rosh Chodesh? As we saw, right, there's also a machloket about that. So he says from the Rambam, it implies that it's only Rosh Chodesh. When it comes to Shabbat and Yom Tov, no, not so, right? We don't do that. So that's the way it comes down. The Samag as well comes written there. So he says also the simple language of the Braita. That's the way it implies. Because since it says Rosh Chodesh there, otherwise you should have said, right, a day which there's Musaf there, which also would include Shabbat and Yom Tov, but since it didn't say that, it just said Rosh Chodesh, so it implies it's exclusively Rosh Chodesh and not something else. Okay. So that's the way it comes out. So he says, therefore, that's halacha, right? That we only apply this rule to Rosh Chodesh and not to Shabbat and Yom Tov. So what are we talking about? If you forgot Ya'aleh V'yavo, on Rosh Chodesh in Shachrit, right? We're talking about the Chazan now, not the individual, right? Because the individual has a different halacha altogether. When it comes to the Chazan, if you forgot it, right, we say, you know what, let him make it up on Musaf. Okay, so what about Shabbat and Yom Tov? What are we talking about there? So Shabbat and Yom Tov, right, it's not Ya'aleh V'yavo there. It's, right, we're talking about, the question is, did you mention Shabbat there or not? Or did you do like a weekday prayer, So the answer is, right, that if you did a weekday prayer, the Chazan, and didn't mention Shabbat, he has to go back and pray again, because we don't equate that to Rosh Chodesh. It's not the same thing. Okay, so that's that which Rabbeinu claimed over here, the Torah, the Maishana Shabbat Yom Tov Rosh Chodesh. So his question was, right, what's the difference between one and the other? It's all the same, no? Rosh Chodesh, Shabbat, Yom Tov. Why should we differentiate one or the other from the other? So he says we can answer that. So he says, since Rosh Chodesh, people go to work and they do labor. It's not a day of rest, really. Rosh Chodesh, right? Who takes off from work on Rosh Chodesh? Right? I don't know anybody who does that. So therefore, right, they were more lenient because people have to go to work. They don't have time to stick around, until the Chazan fixes up his problems. As we said, right, it's going to be another 5-10 minutes. People have to, gotta go. So therefore, when it comes to Rosh Chodesh, they were lenient. But on Shabbat and Yom Tov, since they're not working anyway, right? I hope they're not working. Today, right? We have different issues with that. I hope they're not working. שאין בהם עשיית מלאכה, לא רצו להקל. So since there's no labor there, right? Nobody's going to labor. So therefore, right, they didn't want to be lenient to rabbis with that. So therefore, they told you, stick around, let him fix it up. Because, he prayed like a weekday prayer, obviously. That's what happened. Which is not good. Okay, so let's see the Shulchan Aruch here. On Gimel. So, says Shulchan Aruch, כל מקום שהיחיד חוזר ומתפלל. Like every place where you have an individual, right, that has to go back and pray, שליח ציבור חוזר ומתפלל. Also, שליח ציבור, same thing, right? Same הלכה. אם טעה בכמותו, כשמתפלל בקול רם. If he made a mistake when he prays the repetition. חוץ משחרית של ראש חודש. Except the what? As we said, right? שחרית of ראש חודש, there we give him a break. שאם שכח שליח ציבור ולא הזכיר יעלה ויבוא, if he forgot, right, to mention and didn't say יעלה ויבוא, עד שהשלים תפילתו, until he already finished already, right? Can't fix it up anymore. He finished already. אין מחזירים אותו, so we don't tell him to go back. מפני טורח הציבור. Why is that? Because people got what to do, right? They're going to work. They don't have time for that. They can't stick around and wait for you. שהרי תפילת המוספים לפניו, שהוא מזכיר בראש חודש. As we also said, right, that still he's going to mention it with Musaf. So he can fix it up, אבל אם נזכר קודם שהשלים את תפילתו, but if he remembered before he finished the prayers, חוזר לרצה ואין בזה טורח הציבור. You should go back to Retzeh, and fix it up, right? Say it again. That's not right. Going to be a big time, time difference. That's going to take like a minute or two. So, that we're not so worried about. So, how long can you fix it up right away? Just to how much, how much does he have? So, as we said, right, the rule is, I think we mentioned it one time or another. The rule is that if he didn't say, he didn't step back yet from the prayer, you can still go back to Retzeh, and fix it up and say Yaleh V'yavo. Once he steps back, that's it. Right? You wrote something here. It says that, and then he stepped back. That's it. Done. You're done. Right. So then he has to go back. Right. So here we say he doesn't have to go back. That's the whole thing. Right. Okay. So it says the Ramah here. Yesh omrim de'im ta'a b'shachrit. Some say that if he made a mistake with shachrit, shel Shabbat of Shabbat, v'yom tov dino kemo berosh chodesh v'achim v'hagu. So he brings the opinion of the Tur, right? That Yom Tov and Shabbat is just like Rosh Chodesh. So he says that's a custom. So it seems like the Ashkenazim here go like the Tur, right? And the Samak, right, who also agreed with that. But as we already saw in the Beit Yosef, right, the Shulchan Aruch doesn't agree with that. So what does that mean? That if you made a mistake with the Yom Tov and Shabbat, the Chazan, you would have to go back and pray again, either way. That's the idea. Okay, good. So we're done with that. I think we have one more, Dalet, right? Finish the chapter. Bezrat Hashem. Let's see here. Okay, so we'll see the tour first. Yeah, it looks like we finished the tour, so we'll do the Beit Yosef. So, right, he quotes the two here. We already read this inside. It says, כתב הרמב"ם שאם טעה שליח ציבור כמתפלל בלחש. Right? שמתפלל בלחש. So the question was, right, what about when the shliach tzibur is praying his silent prayer? What does he do? Does he have to go back and pray again? So, right, what the Torah said was, last week we read this, he doesn't have to go back and pray again. Why is that? Because he's still going to do the repetition, right? So he can make it up there. So, like kill two birds with one stone, do both. You make it up and you also do the repetition in one shot. So regarding that, says Bet Yosef, Ken kata bepek yud milchot tefillah, right? That's what it says over there in Rambam, in this place. Ela shenuschat Rabbeinu ena mechuvenet im nuschat didan. But he says we don't have the same text as the Torah does in the Rambam. De'achi garsinan besfarim shelanu. So he says in our books, this is what it says in the Rambam. Misha ta'a be'echad mishalosh brachot harishonot. He made a mistake with the first three blessings. Chozer lerosh. He goes back to the beginning. Ve'im ta'a be'echad mishalosh brachot acharonot. Also, if he made a mistake in the last ones, Chozer la'avodah, he goes back to let's say. Ve'im ta'a be'echad mehem. If he made a mistake, in the middle ones, Chozer le'tchilat bracha she'ta'a ba. He goes back to the beginning of the blessing that he made a mistake. Mashtim tefilato, and he goes on from there. Right, finishes the prayers. Ala seder, right, on the right order. So this is one way that we need, right? That we already did before. When you're talking about shliach tzibur that made a mistake, he was playing, I'm sorry, what we call vowel voice. Al derech zo uchozer, he also goes back the same way. But if he made a mistake when he's doing the silent amidah, אני אומר שאינו חוזר, מתפלל פעם שנייה. So says the Rambam, I say, he doesn't have to go back and pray again. Why is that? Because as we said, right, it's going to be extending the time of the prayers too much. So what does he do? He's going to rely, right, on the one he's going to do, the repetition. He's going to make it up over there. That's only if he didn't make a mistake, it says in the first three blessings. Because if he made a mistake with them, the Olam Chozer, he has to always go back. Just like an individual. Katav kolbo, that's interesting. Says the kolbo, b'siman mem gimel, al yale yavo, regarding yale yavo, v'de'ayina shekol echad mitpalel le'atzmo, and nowadays, since everybody's praying for himself, im shliach tzibur amro belachash, but if the individual said it, right, I'm sorry, if the shliach tzibur said it in the silent one, en sarich lechazor klar, he doesn't go back at all, לא לראש חודש ולא לעבודה שאינו חוזר ומתפלל בקול רם. So it says not Rosh Chodesh and also not for the Ritzei. That he doesn't go back and pray again in a loud voice. אלא משום קדושה. Only because of the kedusha. So the same thing also comes out from the mentioning the rains and asking for the rains. So regarding this, right, says Bet Yosef, right, these are not correct, his words here. What he's saying here. Because it implies that even in times of the rabbis of Talmud, hayu mitpalim belachash. They were praying silently. And the shliach tzibur go back and pray loudly. So it says, it comes out from the words that Rambam that I wrote close by. Even though they said it right silent. He made a mistake when he goes back and prays it out loud. He has to go back. So he's saying, right, this seems to be also the opinion of poskim. So what is he saying over here, right? Just to sum it up, he's telling you that, right, even though the Torah says that we poskim like the Rambam here, but his text of the Rambam is different than ours. So therefore, right, it doesn't come out exactly the way we do it. So let's see in the Shulchan Aruch, right, and we'll see how he sums it up, practically speaking. So it says here, "Im ta shliach tzibur." If the shliach tzibur made a mistake, כשהתפלל בלחש, when he was praying silently, לעולם אינו חוזר ומתפלל שנית. He doesn't have to go back and pray again, right? As we said. מפני תורת ציבור. Why is that? Because people are going to get annoyed with the time, right? The time is you were losing there. אלא סומך על התפילה שהתפלל בקוראן. So what is he doing? He's going to rely on the prayer that he's going to say, right? Repetition. He'll correct it there. והוא שלא טעה בג' ראשונות. That's only if he made a mistake in the first three blessings. שאם טעה בהם לעולם חוזר. Because if you made a mistake over there, he has to go back always. כמו שהיחיד חוזר, just like the individual. Right, so the interesting question comes up, by the way, here. Why does he differentiate between the first three blessings and the rest of it? Why would you want to do that? Because either way, right, whether you did the first three blessings correctly or not, you made a mistake, and your prayer is not good. I mean, according to the rabbis, it's not a good prayer. So, then what the difference does it make, whether it's the first three or afterwards? How does that change anything, That's the question you have to ask. So it must be, that according to this opinion, which is the Rambam's opinion, it must be that he holds when you make a mistake in the first three blessings, your prayer is like not a prayer at all. It's like you didn't pray at all. In other words, it's a very serious, it's a very serious blemish on your prayer. Not so when it comes to the rest of the prayer, that even though the rabbi said you have to go back and pray again, but nevertheless, right, it must be that the Rambam holds, you did nevertheless pray something. Your prayer was something. You don't have to go back and pray again. But when you didn't do the first three properly, it's like your prayer was a big fat zero, didn't do nothing. So therefore, according to Rambam, and according to Shulchan Aruch, right, that's the reason why it must be that he says that, when it comes to the first three blessings, you got to go back either way. Interesting. Let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says about that, right? Let's see if he catches on to this whole thing. Interesting. See how he
Kabbalah Taraf, you said it was a serious blemish. What kind of blemish are we talking about?
It's like, your prayer is zero. You didn't do nothing.
Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, he doesn't really explain this whole thing. But he does mention here, the Mishnah Berurah, that there's a machloket about this, that, what we said was according to Rambam. But according to the Tur, really, he doesn't differentiate between the first three and the others. But anyway, right, halachas like the Shulchan Aruch, obviously. Here, in this particular case, even the Ramah doesn't really argue here, right? Yeah, so it seems, so therefore it seems like the halacha is like this for everybody. And when it comes to the first three, you gotta go back. But as we said, right, we're talking about the Chazan here, so we're not talking about the individual, right? Just to keep that in mind. Because when it comes to the individual, you have to go back anyway, right? Either way. So that's a different story. The reason why they were lenient here, regarding the Chazan, as we said, is because of Tirchat HaTzibur, right? What does that mean? That people have to wait, it causes, people to get, delayed. You don't want that. That's all I did. Okay, very good. So I guess we'll stop there. We'll finish the chapter. Be blessed with wealth, health, happiness. We'll see you tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem. Pray for the victory of Am Yisrael. They're already engaged in combat there. There's a lot of stuff going on there. It's already getting pretty sticky over there. So Hashem should help us. B'ezrat Hashem, we should come out, and enemies should be defeated and totally uprooted. B'ezrat Hashem. They should have nowhere to go. Nowhere to go, but you know where, right? Downstairs there. We'll see you tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem. Laila Tov.
Kavod Harav, thank you so much.
Okay.